Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. If you joined us for our session a short while ago on mortgage availability from Portuguese lenders, we are now going to look at the process of buying a property in Portugal, specifically the legal process. And I'm delighted to go through that with you this morning with Portuguese property lawyer, Paula Morales. Good morning, Paula. How are you?
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. I'm well, thank you. And what about you?
Yeah, I'm fine. And where are you today? Where are you based?
Today I'm at home, as it's Sunday. I'm at home. The weather is not very bright, but we are around 30 degrees, so it's a quite warm day. I'm going to have bacalhau today, just for you to know.
Bacalhau, explain what that is for people who might not be familiar with the dish.
It's codfish, and in Portugal we have 1001 ways of doing it. Today it's going to be in the oven with potatoes, boiled olive oil, so it's something delicious.
And is this the salted fish, the salted and dried version that you're using?
Yes, that's what we use here at home. So you have it cutted, then you desalt for a few days, have it in the fridge, and when you want it to prepare, you take it out like 24 hours before and prepare it. Doesn't need too much preparation, just a little bit of garlic, olive oil, pepper, it will be enough.
Well, you're obviously far more organized domestically than I am. If something needs to desalt for 3 days and then take out the fridge 24 hours, that's way more preparation than I'm capable of. But I like the fact that you started by referring to the weather. You're very aware of your audience today, that they're British, and we're all interested in the weather, of course.
I know, and I miss your weather, but I think you love more mine than.
That is absolutely true. And I tell you what we do miss. We miss our exhibitions, because normally you would be at our A Place in the Sun live exhibition at the NEC Birmingham this weekend. It was scheduled for this weekend, of course.
It is true. I should have went on Thursday, and I feel a little bit nostalgic because I feel I should be there in England at the exhibition. And when I come home, I feel like, okay, now winter comes and you need to start working again. So this is missing. These webinars will give me back that feeling. It's good to have you around and to do these webinars, but it really feels like I should be in England.
Okay, well, we would like to have you here. It's just a shame that for all the reasons that everybody is all too familiar with, we are not able to do that, sadly. But we hope to be back to our live exhibitions next year. So yeah, in place, we are doing these virtual events, different format, different medium. And for all our audience out there, please feel free to ask questions. There is a Q&A icon on your screen somewhere. If you just tap that, open that, you can put questions related to buying a property in Portugal to me, and I will pass them on to Paula, and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. So as I said in the Portuguese mortgage session, I would put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know anything about Portuguese mortgages. Let me do the same for the conveyancing process in Portugal. So how many sort of constituent parts would you break the process down into, Paula?
I would say in 3 main parts. The first part, which I always describe to the clients as the most difficult part of the process, is the moment when the person decides to start property hunting. Looking for properties is the most difficult part of the process. We have clients that they see, very fortunate clients, that they see a property in 3-4 days visit and they find their property. But we have clients that they look for the properties for 2-3 years before they find the property. So I always say this to the clients. And when they come to me and they found the property, they always say that, Paula, this was the most difficult part of the process. So this is the first step, I would say. Then when you find the property, the legal process starts with the legal searches. There are three main documents of the property that we need to check. In Portugal, people don't have that idea, majority of people don't have that idea, is that we are very well informatically developed. Me sitting in my desk at the office, I have access to all the registered properties in Portugal. And I can do a pre-analysis sitting on my desk of the legal status of the property. Although that for me, it's not enough. We always displace to the different places where the clients buy their properties to do our legal searches. Because me having access to the documentation of the property online does not give me access to the existing files at the administrative services in Portugal about that property. So I always make the point to displace and go through every file on of each property. And there are three.
Just to jump in there a second, sorry, Paula. So when you say, so I'm a potential buyer. I found a property through an estate agent. I've made an offer. I've met you maybe at our exhibition. You can access a certain amount of data online, but when you say displace, you physically go to look at the property?
No, I don't visit properties. I visit the entities, the official entities where the different files of the property are sitting. I go to the town hall to see the existing licensing process of the property that the client is buying.
Okay.
It can be an apartment, can be a villa, linked, detached, semi-detached, whatever the client is buying. I want to displace to the town hall and go through the file because I want to know what was allowed to build, what was licensed to build. I want to go through the existing drawings, and that on my desk, I cannot have access to that. So this for me is very, very important because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to advise a client or to buy a property that could have an illegal swimming pool, for example. So for me, the most important thing is to check, firstly, town hall, the existing projects of that property. After that, we go to the fiscal department and check the registration of that property with the tax authorities to find out if what I have seen at the town hall matches with what is inscribed there. And after I have here, I will know if there are any debts that could be claimed against that property, debts to the Portuguese authorities, that could be claims against the property. I will know at this stage. When I finish here my searches, I go to the land registry office and I go through what I call the life record of the property. Is nothing more than land registry certificates. But normally I use this expression to give the idea to the people of what they could expect to see. And in one hand, I have access to all the story of the property since it was a single plot of land, got permission to be plotted, replotted, built, up to the final project of what the person is buying. And in the other hand, everybody that had traded, had or has a particular interest on the property will appear there. So these are the main searches that I do. Some will demand more searches, but in general, these are the main searches. And when I finish these, I will contact the client and inform what I found out. So as I said, we don't see properties, we only see documents. And this is much better for the client because this way I can liaise with him and he will find out according to my description, if it matches with what he has seen physically. only after I have went back to the client and the client had put all his queries, and if the person at this stage still interested on buying, is when we're going to start to produce the contract. So up to now, the person saw the property, made the choice, we have made the legal searches, but nothing is binding. What
Okay.
the person has is only a gentleman's agreement.
Okay. And what sort of time frame is that first part likely to last?
A week or two, depending where the property is located, because as you know, in Portugal, the legislation covers all the country, and the islands is all the same. And that gives me the possibility to represent a client, doesn't matter where they buy. So imagine that the client buys here in the Algarve, it might take me a week, it's enough. If it buys in Madeira or buys in the north or in the Silver Coast, I have to organize myself and this place to do these legal searches. Nowadays, this is under appointment because of COVID. Not all the services are open. So we have to make an appointment through internet, and they will give us a schedule to go and visit the services.
Okay. And given that it is just an offer, and as you refer to a gentleman's agreement, does the estate agent normally take the property off the market at that point?
No, not really. Most of the agents, they will want to have a reservation fee to stop making the viewings, bringing people to see the property. It's not even the reservation agreement is not binding. It's just, again, a gesture of goodwill where the person shows that they are really interested to purchase on that property. Normally, that fee goes into the lawyer's account, it stays there, an agreement is signed, and on that agreement it's set up the price and the length of time that they will have the property reserved, like a table in a restaurant, for few days, 7 days, 15 days, 21 days, depending if you are a cash buyer or if you need a mortgage, so you need more time for me to do the legal searches and for the person to apply for the mortgage, to send over documents to qualify for a mortgage. If the person does not continue with the purchase, will not complete this purchase, this money should be 100% refundable to the person.
Okay, so it's not a deposit in the sense of securing the property, it's just a reservation fee to take it off the market. And do people normally do that then, or does it just depend on the buyer?
It depends on the buyer and the agents. Every agent will have their own policies, but majority, they ask for the reservation fee.
Okay. All right, so that first part has taken place in a couple of weeks, depending on when you get appointments at local town halls to check documentation and travel there and that sort of thing. We've got to that point. What happens next?
Next, if the person decides to move forward, I will prepare a promissory contract of purchase and sale in 2 languages, Portuguese, which is the official document that's going to be signed, and in English, a translation for the person knows what they are entering to. So on that contract, I identify the vendor, the purchaser, describe the property according to what I have seen, conditions of deliverance of the property, what does the vendor has to commit, the price, dates to complete, and that is signed, that document is signed against the payment of a deposit. That deposit goes from 10 to 30% of the purchase price, and that doesn't depend on the agent, that depends on the vendor. He's the one that will establish with the agent how much he wants as a deposit. Of course, that deposit varies in between the 10 and 30%, but it needs to be verified during the legal searches that that amount it's not over of what it could leave the client in a safety position. I will explain better. I will try. Imagine that I'm buying from somebody that has a mortgage and they have an outstanding amount of 70% of the agreed price to pay. I will never allow the client of mine to pay 30%, because if something happens from the signing of the promissory contract until completion, I'm left with no safety margin to help my client. So in that particular case, we would have to say to the vendor, we only can pay 15 or 20% of the deposit. From the moment the person receives that contract with all that, the client will have the opportunity to accept, to do the analysis, to accept, to amend, to suggest alterations. Only when the buyer is happy with the contract is when we're going to send that contract to the vendor's lawyer. And of course, they also have a word. They also can suggest alterations. If I think those alterations are fair, and I will submit them to the client. And only when both parties are happy with the contract is when we're going to request to the client to send the deposit and schedule the signing. I would say that this would be equivalent to exchange in the UK, but in Portugal, you pay the deposit and the deposit is binding. If you change your mind as a buyer, you will lose your deposit. If the vendor breaches contract, they will be obliged to refunds to the buyer in double. And I always say this to the client. From the moment you pay the deposit, no way back. Because if you pull out, as I said, you will lose your deposit. If they breach contract, they will be obliged to refund you in double, because that is the Portuguese condition of making this contract binding, differently than in the UK, that until last minute people can pull out. In Portugal, they have this consequence. And why? Because the vendor will receive the money himself. So he can dispose on that money by investing, saving, or losing the money and going to the casino and spend it all. And when I say this, clients normally get very serious. I see on their faces. I say, no worries, because who would respond for the payment in double would be the property itself.
That's a really interesting concept. I mean, I like that idea. So just to summarize the point we've got to in terms of actual payments, the reservation is a nominal fee of sort of €3,000. That, in the case of you acting for a client, that sits with you and is refundable. But the deposit, if the buyer pulls out, they lose their deposit. But if the vendor pulls out, the buyer gets double the amount of money back. So that's to stop the vendor changing their mind and maybe selling to a higher bidder or something, I guess, to make sure the contract continues.
If they would want to sell for a higher price, and the price would be so attractive that they could still gazump, refund the double, and still have a profit, we have a mechanism which will give the buyer the possibility to have the full amount that would justify gazumping, so more than the double, or the property itself. So that doesn't come directly from the Portuguese legislation as the double of the deposit, but we protect on our contracts clients against that situation.
Okay, I do like that. I've been gazumped in the UK, so it's not a pleasant situation. And yeah, I like the protection that is given. I mean, once you sign to a contract, you should be committed to it, and the devices in place there are secure and keep everybody on track with what they signed up to.
Truth, Andy, and to be honest with you, I've been doing conveyancing since 2002, and I never had a client losing the deposit or receiving it in double. Because if you are the vendor, you will not sign the contract if you can't deliver the property in the conditions that we have proposed. And as a buyer, you will not instruct your lawyer to sign the contract if you are not certain that you can buy. And another thing that I also try to do with clients, some have their own choices. I always advise clients not to sign the contract unless when you need a mortgage to buy, unless you have the certainty that the mortgage will be granted, to avoid losing deposits.
Okay, so we've got lots of questions coming in, which I think we'll try and leave to the end, but one from Marta Peel Yates at the moment asks about the deposit. Is that paid to Paula? But no, that is going to the vendor. That's, you say goodbye to your money at that point, don't you?
Correct. So it really comes to the lawyers, but when we sign, they will only sign against that payment. Normally, the client is not present at that stage. We represent the clients by power of attorney in this moment. Once it's signed and the deposit is paid over, we scan the contract and we send to the client so that they can confirm that the lawyers behaved and sign on their behalf. And another thing that I normally say is from this moment up to completion, no news is good news. Another thing that British buyers, they get a face of unhappiness. I always say, you are free to contact the lawyer and we will be here to answer your queries. The impulse of the lawyer to contact you, if everything goes well, only occurs 2 weeks before completion, because it would be the ideal scale of time to request the funds for the payment of the remaining balance of the purchase and the involving costs.
And Colleen Anderson asks about the reservation fee. Is it deducted from the purchase price? I presume it is?
Yes, of course. If the client sent to our client's account an amount of 3,000, 5,000, 6,000, depending on what the agent, that particular agent, requests. Of course, when the client sends the balance for the deposits, sends less the amount that he already sent for the reservation.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're about 2/3 of the way through. We've done the searches, we've done the promissory contract. What comes next?
Next is completion, the most happy part of the process. As I was saying, normally we contact the client 2 weeks before, because we also advise our clients, if they can, if they agree, to send them money through exchange company, because this way, exchange rate company, this way they will be saving lots of money in exchange rate and fixing the rate. So they know that when they decided to purchase, that was the certain amount of pounds that they will spend, and they know that until the end of the process there will be no surprises. So that is one of the reasons why we ask them 2 weeks before to send the money over, because the day we contact the client, he does nothing. Next day he will instruct the bank to send the money over to the exchange rate company. It normally takes 2 to 3 days to reach our client's account, so 1 week is gone. The day it reaches our account of the next week, we will request, we will have to justify the Bank of Portugal to inform them for which reason we have received that amount of money, and then I'm left only with 3 working days margin to work on a safety basis for our clients, paying all the taxes involving the transaction and preparing the final payment of the transaction. Day of completion, I always invite the clients to be present. I want my clients, if they can, to sign themselves. The deeds is a very important moment where people sign, where people receive the keys, pay the price, and everybody goes happy. The process ends there for the client, not for us. We still have to carry out some legal steps, but for the client, he will receive the key on that day so he can go celebrate, and the document that they have signed will give them ownership of the property.
Okay, thank you. So everyone's happy, champagne's open, and there's a British buyer of a wonderful property in Portugal. That's great. So a question in from Nicola Damelo. without maybe revealing all your fees, because people could contact you to talk more privately, she's asking about how the fees are structured. Are you fee-based? Are you percentage? She's looking for conveyancing costs on a property worth £400,000.
£400,000, I would say that all the closing costs, lawyers' fees, notary fees, land registration, and involving taxes, I would say 8% would cover absolutely everything. Lawyers' fees on conveyancing are based on the percentage. Normally it varies in between 1 and 3% of the purchase price. Depending on the value of the property, I guess. And the lawyer.
Okay. And Heidi Blunt asks about surveys. Do buyers tend to have surveys in Portugal?
Portuguese buyers would never want a survey, but I always advise my British clients to take a survey. I always ask them, would you buy this property in England without a survey? No, so do one here. And normally I also advise people to take British chartered surveyors, because we have here very good ones, to do the survey, because the British know exactly what a British buyer is expecting to see on the survey report, and they are very accurate and demanding on their survey. So I always advise people to take British chartered surveyors.
Okay. Adrian Worth asks about the completion stage and the taxes. So that 8%, obviously that's not your fee. That includes all the local taxes and notary and the equivalent of stamp duty, and all that is rolled up into that. And that is due at the completion stage.
Yes, that is due when we request. Those 15 days before completion is when we request the remaining balance of the property, and those 8%, around 8%, to cover the whole costs. I said 8% on 400,000 because taxes are a sliding scale. It goes from 5, depending on the price of the property, up to 10 in this moment.
Okay. George Harris asks, is the process easier, more difficult, or the same for being a dual national of Portugal and the UK, but living in the UK?
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I wouldn't say that being out of the country would be more difficult than being here or being a Portuguese person. The process is exactly the same.
And any debts, we have a question in again from Adrian, any debts attached, are they attached to a property or an individual?
They are attached to the property. We have to be very careful. So that is one of the reasons why I like to displace to the land registry office and go through the whole life record of the property to find out if it's something forgotten back there, or if something is likely to be claimed against the property. That's the reason I like to displace to the town hall. To the land registry office.
Okay. Elaine Harper asks, is the conveyancing price included in the sale? Well, it's not, is it? Because one's the property and one's the lawyer that you're dealing with.
Yes, of course, no. The vendor pays his own fees to his lawyer and to obtain all the necessary documents, and the buyer, they are separate fees, and the buyer deals with his lawyer and the purchase fees, which are different. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, a lot of questions about wider issues to do with obtaining citizenship, making a will, retirement, and this is probably a good point to flag up a future session that we have with Paula, which is on Thursday the 17th at 2 p.m. And this session is specifically on the conveyancing and the purchase process, but feel free to join us on Thursday the 17th at 2 p.m. when we'll be speaking to Paula about a broader range of subjects. You can, of course, contact Paula at any point. Let me just bring up a page over here where we have a Place in the Sun digital event. This is our website, aplaceinthesundigital.co.uk. This is where you've registered for your webinars, and under our Meet the exhibitors, we have a Portugal page, and this is Paula's page here. If you click on that, it takes you through to some more information about Paula and her business and the services that she supplies, which includes a wider inventory of services. And you can book a meeting with Paula. Just click on here, put your name in there, tick that box, and that will set up a Zoom meeting with Paula, should you like to do that. I'm booked in for a meeting, Paula. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's how you can interact with Paula. She's back on Thursday at 2 p.m. She's also joining our session, our final session of the day, where we have all our exhibitors on screen. We now have a short break, half an hour, before jumping into the role of the estate agent. So two main protagonists in the property purchasing drama. One is a lawyer, the other is the estate agent. We've met Paula and we talked through that process. Thank you for your time, Paula. That's been really interesting.
Thank you very much, Andy, and have a rest of a good day. See you later. Thank you.
And enjoy your bacalhau.
Okay, thank you. I will tell you how it was.
Is it lunch or dinner?
Lunch.
Lunch. Okay. Well, you can tell us how it was at 3:30 or whenever it is we're meeting again.
I will. Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. See you shortly for the next session. Goodbye.